Hello and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host Owen James, the channel that brings you all your latest Rangers news. Right, look, we are in the January transfer window. The January transfer window has been open 3 days now. That's right, 3 days. Not a lot has gone on. Wow. Well, I don't think anyone's surprised. January's not a time when teams tend to rush in lightly. It's a time when it is a seller's market after all, because teams understand that certain other teams have certain needs, and they can extricate a rather large sum of money out of people for players that they want. So look, there is, obviously Rangers do need to strengthen, and as we mentioned on the podcast earlier, there's a number of positions that I do believe need to be strengthened in this squad. Now, the great result against Celtic on Thursday certainly gives us a sort of foundation to work with now. So hopefully, the players can now start to see a reality of what they can achieve when they play to their potential, when they play that fast, aggressive, full of heart, full of aggression type football they played against Celtic in that game. Now, I believe honestly that there are some top players within this squad. I think people have written the squad off, and I think unjustly written the squad off. You look at the likes of Danilo, of Hamza, of Cheney, of Diamande, of Raskin, of Suter, Ridvan, Yefte. There's some class acts in that squad. There is some very good players, and I think players that other teams would certainly look at in terms of acquisition. I mean, certainly we've seen teams in England now starting to look at Hamza. So look, I think Rangers have a number of positions they need to address, and whilst I think it's wholly unrealistic that Rangers will go and sign 5-6 players in this transfer window, I think maybe 1, 2 or 3 more realistic situation. Now, according to the media, sources that I think this is coming out of the club really, that one of the priorities for Rangers in this January transfer window is to bring in another centre-back. I think, the injury crisis that we've had in defence over the last couple of weeks has really sort of hit home to Philippe Clement and Niels Koppen the need to really recruit another centre-back. I mean, if you look at the centre-back options we have at the club at this moment in time, you've got John Suter, obviously, who is out injured, we think, until the end of January. Leon Balogun, who allegedly is close, maybe back on Sunday, we don't know. Robin Propper, who, whilst excellent yesterday, has had a very mixed beginning to his Rangers career. Dujon Sterling, as the dog enters the room, Dujon Sterling, who is a right back essentially, and given the fact that Rangers looked 10 times better yesterday without James Tavernier in an Old Firm game, perhaps it gives you a bit of a guide for the future. Don't play Tav again in an Old Firm game. King certainly doesn't seem to be fancied at all. I think Leon King is done at Rangers. I think, the next step for Leon King will be to go out on loan somewhere, or, even perhaps leave to move on to kind of kickstart his career. We remember him being thrown into the deep end against Liverpool in those Champions League games, and him sinking rather than swimming. I think that was down to who he played with. As well as the fact he was only 18 years old. He's still only 20 now, but I still think that, Clement doesn't clearly trust him or fancy him. He'd rather play a right back at centre-back, and, nothing against how, Dujon was fantastic yesterday, and so was Ridvan at right back. I'm not saying that Clement got it wrong, but what I'm saying is this guy's a centre-back. He's not even getting a look in. Clinton and Ciala, the centre-back signed from AC Milan, certainly seems more a project, and apparently has not shown up well in recent B-team games. So I think he's someone who we're definitely not going to see this season. So, with that, looking at that, and, perhaps the need to perhaps put Sterling back in at right back at some point during this second half of the season, centre-back certainly seems a top priority, especially, if you have one of Suter or Balogun missing. Look, there's a couple of names that have been linked in recent times. One, I think he would be a very good signing if we could get it over the line, but I think it's complicated. That's Ben Godfrey from Atalanta, ex of Everton and Norwich. We'll talk a bit about him in a moment. The other one, obviously, is Johnny Evans. Now, Johnny Evans is the Manchester United veteran who's had a bit of a journeyman career, hasn't he? He's been at Sunderland, he's been at Manchester United, obviously. He's been at Leicester, back to Manchester United again. Currently out of favour with Ruben Amorim. Manchester United apparently want to move him on in January. Chris Boyd dared to suggest the other day when being interviewed, I can't remember if he's been interviewed with maybe Sky or somewhere, that Johnny Evans would be a good signing for Rangers, someone that could add some veteran presence and veteran leadership to that squad, to that dressing room, and to that back four. I've got to say, people have kind of, when I've dared to suggest Ryan Kent as returning on a 6-month deal, and you've got some people saying that Johnny Evans would be a good signing, and you ask them why would Johnny Evans be a good signing, and their sole argument seems to be that he's a Rangers man, he's a Northern Irish, he's an Ulsterman, he loves Rangers. I think that's a very weak argument personally. Look, I don't dislike Johnny Evans. I don't hate Johnny Evans. I've got no feelings on Johnny Evans. I mean, I hate Manchester United, don't get me wrong, but I've got no strong feelings on Johnny Evans. But Johnny Evans is 37 years old. He is well into the latter stages of his career. And before someone, brings up the Davy Weir point, he ain't no Davy Weir. Johnny Evans, I think he's played 6 times for Manchester United this season, has been poor. And I know that's a higher standard in the English Premier League. I understand that, completely get that. The English Premier League is the best league in the world. But, he's a veteran now. His legs are gone. He's not the player he once was. And I just think that would be a massive, massive backward step. People have talked about, signing Ryan Kent has been a backward step. Well, this would be equally, I think, a backward step, bringing in someone like Johnny Evans. The guy is well and truly past it. And I think we'd be slightly hypocritical as well. We've talked about, number one, the need to kind of follow through on this trading model and bring in players who have resale value. Well, Johnny Evans definitely doesn't have any resale value at 37 years old. Add to that, of course, the fact that, we've said that James Tavernier needs to go because he's too old, his legs have gone. Well, Johnny Evans is 4 years older than James Tavernier and his legs have gone. Goldson needed to go in the summer because, he lost it, he was past it. He was 32, 30, 31, 32. Well, Johnny Evans is 5-6 years older than him and he's pretty much the same. So I really think that Johnny Evans would be a really bad move by Rangers, a really retrograde step and a real backward step, and would really, I think, not do us any favours whatsoever. Whilst I've got no doubts in my mind that he could cope with the likes of Hibs and St Johnstone and Ross County and Livingston. Okay, they're not in the league, actually, forget that one. Dundee United, Ross County. I can get that he could cope with all those. I'm not being funny. I think my mum could have a decent go at coping with those. But at the end of the day, he's not the answer. I would not be happy if he was the player brought in. Now, the player that's been mentioned again in a number of media sources this morning in England and in Scotland is Ben Godfrey. Who is Ben Godfrey, I hear you ask? Well, Ben Godfrey has previously been linked with Rangers. He was linked with Rangers in the summer. He's an Everton player. Now, he's currently with Atalanta. He was an Everton player, shall I say. He's now with Atalanta in Italy. Atalanta, of course, famous for buying young players and developing them. Now, according to reports coming out of Serie A, and also Fabrizio Romano has said this as well, Atalanta want to move Godfrey on in January. They see him as surplus to requirements. And I mean, Godfrey's suffered a remarkable drop-off in his career. I mean, he began his career at Norwich City and certainly burst onto the scene and was seen as being a future England centre-back, a real talent. Everton then snapped up Godfrey for £20 million, a big fee for a young player. And, before anybody says it, no, I'm not suggesting that Rangers spend 20 million on a centre-back, as I know that is wholly unrealistic. But the story continues. So then he goes to Everton. It kind of all falls apart. Now, I get Everton, basket case of a club, absolute basket case of a club. Bit of a joke of a club as well, I think, a club that have long since, have kind of dallied with relegation in the English Premier League. And I think it's a real shame they haven't actually been relegated. I'd love to see them playing in the Championship in that brand new stadium. I think it would be absolutely hilarious. And the fact they owe us money for Nathan Patterson, of course, makes me dislike them even more. So he was £20 million player. He was then sold to Atalanta in the summer for £10 million. So his value halved. And he hasn't really kicked on at Atalanta. He hasn't featured very much. He hasn't played a lot for Atalanta. In fact, his stats from this season are not very impressive at all. He's only played 5 games and 93 minutes for Atalanta. So, if you work on the basis that, 90 minutes for a game, 5 games, that's 450 minutes. He's played 93. I mean, that's just over one game. His whole game he's played. So you can see that he's been used largely as a substitute. He's played 22 minutes in Serie A, 17 minutes in the Champions League, 26 minutes in the Italian Cup, and 28 minutes in the UEFA Super Cup. So hardly been used at all. Very much seen as being, not settled in Italy, not part of their plans, not a player they want to keep. Certainly not something that, not a player they want to hang on to. I mean, his career is decent in terms of, that's the wrong player, that's Ryan Kent, sorry. This one here. His career is not too bad at all. He's made 93 appearances for Everton with 3 assists, 78 appearances for Norwich. He had a spell at Shrewsbury as well, and at York City. now with Atalanta, where he's only made those 5 appearances. Played for Norwich under 18s, Everton under 21s. There is clearly a defender in there. I'm not saying that Everton always get their signings right, because they don't. But they've signed some. Obviously, they've had defenders like Jared Branthwaite, who is absolute quality. But Ben Godfrey is clearly not an absolute mug. He is clearly not an absolute loser. He is clearly not someone who is not a player. There's clearly a player in there. You don't move for nearly £30 million across your career if there's not something there. Now, with the sort of statement that Atalanta want rid of him in January, Rangers reportedly are ready to rekindle their interest if the price is right. Now, that could be a loan deal with a obligation or an option to buy, or it could be even the Rangers going with some sort of cheeky bid of 5 million or 6 million, something like that. To say, well, you took a big, you got him for 10 million, you don't want him anymore. You've said you don't want him anymore. This is what you're prepared to pay. Take it or leave it. Godfrey would be a better signing than Johnny Evans. He's still a young player. He's still up and coming. He's still a player who I think can, refine that talent that he once had. He's 26 years old. You use him for a couple of years. At Rangers, get him 28. Centre backs sort of mature a bit later, don't they, than midfielders and the attackers. 28, you sell him on for a profit again. So he's still someone who could roughly fit within that player trading model. I do believe that Godfrey would be a better signing. So that one certainly interests me, and certainly one I'm going to keep an eye on, over the coming weeks. A much better player. The guy is decent. The guy is decent from what I remember. He's 6 foot. He's a big guy, physical guy. He's quick. He's good on the ball. He's had a decent career to this point in terms of the clubs he's been at. He's just kind of never really fulfilled the potential he had at Norwich, and what he did. He must have had some talent to play for Everton. You don't make 93 Everton appearances and 82 Premier League appearances if you're a pretty shit player. I think in total, including his time at Norwich, he's made 114 Premier League appearances. So you don't make 114 Premier League player appearances if you're not very good. So like I said, I think his career's taken a wrong turn going to Italy. Could this be something we resurrect? 12 months, 18 months down the line, we sell him on for a big profit. Could that be the case? This is an interesting one. And I think, like I said, for me, Godfrey is a far better option than Johnny Evans. There's obviously other options out there. I don't know where we're looking. We obviously we do need a centre back. We've obviously got Proper in the window. Hasn't really worked. We were after Cordoba. That collapsed as he went to Norwich. Kaique Fernandez stayed in Spain. So I think there's definitely interest there. But, like I said, it is a clear indication from the club that getting a new centre-back is a priority. Right, guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. Obviously, please help us continue on our run for 7,000. We're 96 away now. So please smash that sub, smash that like. Remember, you can thank the channel as well with the super thanks down the bottom. Donate a bit of cash to help the channel keep on going and become a member for as little as 99p. Well, thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. On the way out, please smash the like, sub, comment, share. And remember always, we are the people.